In one of the most unexpected political shake-ups in recent history, the Reform Party has just scored a massive win in the local elections, sending shockwaves through Britain's political establishment. For months, pundits predicted modest gains, perhaps even a few surprises, but nothing prepared the country for what unfolded at the ballot boxes. The Reform Party, long considered an outsider force, is now emerging as a powerful player on the national stage, with local victories across councils that were once considered strongholds of Labour and even Conservative support. As the results came in, disbelief turned to celebration for Reform supporters, while concern and confusion swept through the headquarters of mainstream parties. The numbers don't lie. Council after council reported significant swings in favour of Reform candidates, some by wide margins. Towns that have voted Labour for decades flipped overnight. Rural areas that traditionally leaned Tory embraced Reform with open arms. In key areas, independent exit polls suggest that Reform didn't just scrape by, they dominated. And this wasn't limited to one region. This was a national trend, visible in northern towns, southern districts, and even in suburban regions previously considered untouchable by new parties. The message from the people was clear: change is no longer a distant hope, it's an urgent demand. But while Reform was celebrating what can only be described as a political landslide, a darker narrative began to unfold behind the scenes, one that could have significant consequences for Labour's reputation and perhaps even its leadership. Reports began surfacing of voting irregularities, most notably in several closely contested wards. At first, they appeared to be isolated incidents: missing ballots, inconsistencies in voter rolls, and delayed vote counts. However, as more information poured in, concerns grew. Eyewitnesses claimed that they were turned away from polling stations despite being registered. Some said they noticed duplicate names or suspicious activity near polling booths. Allegations quickly spread online that some Labour campaigners might have crossed ethical lines to suppress or manipulate votes. The question on everyone's mind: was this merely the result of election day chaos, or was something more coordinated happening beneath the surface? Reform leaders wasted no time in responding. In a late-night press conference, they condemned the alleged misconduct and called for a full investigation. Their leader stated unequivocally, "This election proves that the people are ready for a new direction. But any attempt to interfere with democracy, any effort to cheat or silence voters, must be confronted head-on. We will not back down." Meanwhile, Labour's leadership found itself on the defensive. What should have been a night to regroup and prepare for future battles turned into a media firestorm. The party initially dismissed the allegations as conspiracy theories pushed by sore losers. However, the tone shifted quickly as local journalists uncovered internal emails and testimonies suggesting that party organizers were aware of potential issues ahead of the vote. A whistleblower even came forward, claiming they were instructed to do what it takes to secure tight wins, including encouraging questionable practices at the local level. This has left many asking, was this a case of rogue actors taking things too far, or is Labour facing a systemic crisis within its own ranks? Adding fuel to the fire, social media exploded with videos, photos, and personal stories from voters who say they experienced unfair treatment or were unable to vote altogether. Hashtags like #Labour cheated and #Reform Revolution began trending within hours. The narrative shifted rapidly from celebration to controversy. Reform supporters were energized by the idea that not only did they win fairly, but they did so despite potential suppression tactics. Labour, on the other hand, found itself fighting on two fronts, dealing with the fallout from the election loss and defending its integrity in the face of mounting evidence. Political analysts are now reassessing everything. Some are calling this the beginning of the end for the traditional two-party dominance in Britain. If the Reform Party continues its momentum, the next general election could look very different from anything we've seen before. The idea of a three-way contest is no longer theoretical, it's becoming a reality. Voters, especially younger generations and those disillusioned with the current system, are increasingly turning to voices outside the establishment. Reform's messaging around national sovereignty, economic independence, and government accountability is striking a chord across a broad spectrum of society. At the same time, internal pressures within Labour are intensifying. Senior members are reportedly demanding answers and calling for leadership changes if the allegations prove true. Already, whispers of a leadership challenge are circulating in Westminster. The party's response, or lack thereof, over the next few weeks may determine its future viability. If it cannot clean house and rebuild trust, it risks being pushed further into political irrelevance. One thing is certain, the political landscape in the UK has changed, perhaps permanently. Reform's sweeping winds have altered the balance of power and emboldened voices that were previously marginalised. The election results are not just numbers on a spreadsheet, they reflect deep dissatisfaction with the status quo and a desire for meaningful reform, both in name and in action. Voters are no longer content with promises. They want performance, transparency, and above all, honesty. Meanwhile, the call for investigations into Labour's conduct is growing louder. Electoral watchdogs are now under immense pressure to respond swiftly and thoroughly. The credibility of future elections may depend on how seriously these allegations are handled. If proven true, they could lead to criminal charges, disqualifications, and even by-elections in affected areas. Reform has already stated it is preparing legal challenges in select constituencies and will pursue justice for every voter they believe was disenfranchised. As the dust settles from this historic election, one thing is clear: Britain is at a crossroads. The old rules no longer apply. The people have spoken, not in whispers, but in a roar, and their message is echoing through every corner of the political system. Reform's victory wasn't just about policies, it was a statement of intent. A declaration that the nation is ready for something different, something bold, and something honest. The coming days will reveal more. Will Labour own up to its mistakes and rebuild, or will it crumble under the weight of scandal? Can Reform capitalise on its momentum and transition from local victories to national influence? Whatever happens next, we are witnessing a pivotal moment in modern British politics, one that will be studied, debated, and remembered for years to come.